Circle webinar. These webinars focus on tactics, tools, and techniques trainers can use to empower program operators with the knowledge and job skills needed to provide high-quality meals and snacks in the Child and Adult Care Food Program, CACFP. Thank you for joining today's webinar, a look inside the CACFP Trainer Tools Feeding Infants Kit. My name is Francine Cagey, and I'm a nutritionist with the Nutrition Education, Training, and Technical Assistance Division at USDA's Food and Nutrition Service and Child Nutrition Program. You are in listen-only mode and should be able to hear us through your computer speakers or phone. We will take questions at the end of this webinar using the chat box near the bottom of your screen. You will receive a certificate for attending this webinar for the entire hour. Certificates will be emailed to you by Tuesday, December 31st. You may need to check your spam folder for your certificate. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available at a later date on the Team Nutrition website. Today we will be hearing from Katie Hallis, a nutritionist with the Nutrition Education, Training, and Technical Assistance Division at USDA's Food and Nutrition Service and Child Nutrition Program, and Erica Nelson, a Child and Adult Care Food Program Specialist with the District of Columbia State Agency, Office of the State Superintendent of Education. The roadmap for our time together is to describe the various components of the CACFP Trainer's Tool Feeding Infants, to discuss at least 3 different training considerations in preparing for trainings on the CACFP infant meal pattern, and to identify 2 ways to utilize the options within the trainer's guide to customize trainings to meet participants' needs. As we get started, we want to know who you are. Please go ahead and select one of the following listed on the slide here. Let us know if you are state agency staff who plan and implement CACFP training, government agency staff who develop training material, community-based organization staff who plan and implement CACFP training, CACFP sponsoring organizations who provide training, a CACFP site operator who attends training and may train other staff, or another category. We have a nice variety of participants with us today, and we are excited to have you all with us. In fiscal year 2018, the Food and Nutrition Service offered an opportunity for state agencies that administer the CACFP to apply for the CACFP Meal Service Training Grant. 38 state agencies applied for and received this funding for a total of $3.7 million. The first year of these 2-year training grants have been completed, and states have reported using grant funds to provide training on culinary skills and food preparation methods, developing cycle menus, training on whole grain and ounce equivalents, and family-style meal service. Grantees have also been able to pilot Team Nutrition's CACFP Trainer's Tool Feeding Infants, and we're excited to have one of our grantees sharing some of their training experiences today. I want to share a few of the updates of training resources from Team Nutrition. Team Nutrition recently launched a new online network for Team Nutrition's CACFP organizations. All sponsoring organizations and independent child care centers currently participating in the CACFP can enroll online via the Team Nutrition website. Team Nutrition CACFP organizations also have the opportunity to request exclusive educational materials like Team Nutrition's Discover New Food decal set to promote healthy choices at meals, snacks, or anytime. These decals depicted on the screen are removable and can be repositioned on many surfaces. In October, Team Nutrition also released a new training worksheet to help CACFP operators transition to the use of ounce equivalents to measure grains. This easy-to-use training resource can be used by state agencies, sponsoring organizations, and others who train CACFP providers, operators, menu planners, and other staff in meeting the grains ounce equivalent. This resource is available on the Team Nutrition website in English and in Spanish. Free printed versions in both languages will be available for order soon. And Team Nutrition has also created a series of training slides inspired by the CACFP 30 on Thursdays webinar. These ready-to-go presentation slides can be used to train providers, operators, and menu planners on the CACFP meal pattern. These slides are available both in English and in Spanish and are also 508 compliant, which is the government standard for accessibility. Topics currently available include adding whole grains to your menu, feeding infants, starting with solids, menu planning for the CACFP, and offer versus serve in the CACFP. Team Nutrition is working to make more presentation slides available soon. And now I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
Great, thank you, Francile. As Francile mentioned, my name is Katie Hallis, and I'm a nutritionist here with USDA's Food and Nutrition Service. And I'm going to be talking about the different components of the new CACFP Trainers Tools Feeding Infants Kit, which I'm so excited is out there now and in your hands. So, but before I dive into the Trainers Kit, I do want to get a sense of how many of you have heard of another one of our Team Nutrition resources titled the Feeding Infants in the Child and Adult Care Food Program Guide. So you should, again, see that same polling box pop up. Go ahead and select your answer. Yes, I have heard of it. Yes, I have heard of it and actually used it. Or no, I have not heard of it or used it. Okay, great. So answers are still coming in, but it looks like the majority of you have heard of it and used it. So thank you for taking the time to respond. For those of you who are not familiar with the Feeding Infants in the CACFP Guide, it does include information on the current CACFP infant meal pattern requirements, as well as CACFP policy guidance and the latest nutrition science on infant feeding. This guide is a training tool for CACFP operators, and it presents information, including practice scenarios and check your knowledge questions on topics like the infant meal pattern, developmental readiness for solid foods, hunger and fullness signs, handling and storing breast milk and infant formula, solid foods, what is actually creditable in the CACFP infant meal pattern, and so much more. This guide does actually serve as the participant guide for the CACFP Trainers Tools Feeding Infants Kit, which is going to be our focus for today. And if you're doing a training with the kit, you'll just want to make sure that your participants have one per person for your trainings. I do want to mention that print copies are now available for the Feeding Infants in the CACFP Guide in English, and the Spanish version is available online with the English. Print versions in Spanish will be made available in early 2020, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so now let's go into the CACFP Trainers Tools Feeding Infants Kit. Content from the Feeding Infants in the CACFP Guide, which we just talked about, has really been brought to life in these new in-person training resources. These training resources include a trainer's guide, 10 lessons, which includes PowerPoint presentations with trainer notes, 5 videos, 2 game show style digital interactives to help participants test their knowledge within the training in a group setting, but also afterwards individually, and then pre and post tests for each lesson. So this training focuses on hot topics from the Feeding Infants in the CACFP Guide, which we'll take a closer look at all of those topics on the next slide. But trainers from sponsoring organizations, state agencies, and others can really pick and choose from a variety of these 10 lessons to create a training that best suits the needs of their CACFP operators. This resource is now available in English on our Team Nutrition website, and then the Spanish version of this trainer's kit will be made available in January 2020. and then print versions will be available at a later date. So as I mentioned, this training has 10 lessons, and these lessons cover topics including an overview of the CACFP infant meal pattern, identifying and responding to hunger and fullness signs, creating a breastfeeding-friendly environment in a childcare site, storing and handling breast milk, selecting, storing, and handling infant formula in a childcare site, bottle feeding and introducing a cup, developmental readiness for solid foods, infant feeding skills and modifying food textures, and then one of our most popular is the creditable infant foods part 1 and 2. So if all 10 lessons are conducted, the training will take approximately 5 hours depending on the size of your group. However, within the trainer's guide, there are suggestions for lesson groupings for 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, and even 4 hour trainings. Again, depending on your participants' needs and the time you've allocated for that training. Okay, so now I'd like to walk through some of the different components of a lesson. So again, we have those 10 lessons, and each lesson contains a pre and post test. Of course, the actual lesson content, and at least one small group activity. Many of the lessons, but not all, include those items as well as a video, a large group activity, and or a digital interactive game. So we really tried to make these lessons as interactive as possible. Here's an example of one of the lesson title slides to give you an idea of what it looks like. I'm going to cover lesson 2 of this kit titled Identifying and Responding to Hunger and Fullness Signs, so you can get a taste of some of the different lesson components I just mentioned. Don't worry though, I'm not going to go through the full lesson. Much of the lesson content has been left out of this webinar, but we will walk through a pre-test, a video, large group activity, small group activity, and then the best part, the digital interactive games. So as I mentioned, each lesson has a pre-test and a post-test included in the slides. And Erica and her team from DC, who you'll hear from in just a minute, had a great idea for the pre-test where they read the question to their participants and had them shout out the answers. However, they did not give the answers to the questions during the pre-test. They then proceeded to present the lesson content and revealed the answers to the questions at the end during the post-test. So that approach was actually adopted in the trainer's kit, so you'll see that as an option in the materials as a way to present the pre-test. So let's go ahead and do this one. So true or false, crying is one of the first signs that a baby is hungry. So we don't have this as an actual polling question, but feel free to use your chat box to type in your answer. You can even write it down on a piece of paper if you'd like, because we are going to revisit the post-test, which is when I'll reveal the answer. Or go ahead and shout at your computer if you're alone. We won't tell anybody. So again, I'll read the answer, the question, true or false. Crying is one of the first signs that a baby is hungry. All right, let's go to the next one. So this one is all of these pictures show a baby giving a sign that he or she is hungry, except choose one. Making sucking noises, opens mouth for bottle, sucks slowly or stops sucking, and rooting. Again, go ahead and use the chat box if you'd like. Write it down to see if you got the answer right during our post-test. Or again, shout at your computer. It's fine. And again, we're going to reveal the answer during the post-test. Okay, last one. So all of these pictures show a baby giving a sign that he or she is full, except choose one. Pushing food away, turns head away, rooting, or seals lips together. So again, during the pre-test, your participants might be shouting different answers, and this is where we would hold off and give them the answers during the post-test. All right. So next, let's go ahead and talk about the videos. There are 5 videos within the trainer's kit. Each video is embedded in the PowerPoint presentation, and it's actually going to play automatically as you advance the slide. And then all videos are 2 to 3 minutes in length. Unfortunately, due to the functions of our webinar platform today, I'm unable to play the full video for you, but I have included a few screenshots so you can get a look inside this particular video. And this video is from Lesson 2 again, and is titled Identifying Signs of Hunger and Fullness. So the scene opens in this video on a seasoned child care provider talking to a new provider, and they are discussing how they can tell if baby David, pictured here, is hungry or full. The seasoned child care provider holds up the Feeding Infants in the CACFP guide, which is that participant guide that we're going to hand out to each participant in the training, to show all of the signs of hunger and fullness. So this is a good reminder for participants in your training that the guide that they receive in that training, that Feeding Infants in the CACFP guide, is really their go-to for the information shared in the training, including the information that's shared in these videos. So all of the videos, including this one, include supplemental text on the screen to help emphasize key points or summarize information that is shared verbally in the videos. As I mentioned, there are 5 videos in total, so 5 lessons contain 1 video each. And the titles of these videos are the overview of the CACFP infant meal pattern, identifying signs of hunger and fullness, supporting breastfeeding mothers in a child care site, handling and storing breast milk and infant formula in a child care site, and then developmental readiness for solid foods. All right, let's switch gears, and we're going to move into an example of one of our large group activities. So this can be played with all of your participants at one time. So for this activity, a picture of a baby showing different signs of hunger and fullness signs will appear on the screen. And the participants, again, can shout out their answer if they think it's a sign of hunger or fullness. So let's go ahead and do that now. We don't have a formal poll for this, but feel free, again, to use the chat box or shout at your computer, because, you know, we're okay with that. So do you all think this is a sign of hunger or fullness? So in this picture, this baby is moving her head towards the spoon of food. Great, so this is a sign of hunger. So the next one here, again, use your chat box or shout. Do you all think this is a sign of hunger or fullness? So in this picture, this baby is sealing her lips together. She also does not look very pleased. So if you yelled a sign of fullness or full, that is correct. And then the last one here, so the baby's crying in this picture. What do we think about this one? Great, so if you screamed hungry, that is correct. Crying is, as we know, a late sign of hunger. So we definitely want to remind our operators that to pay attention to those other signs of hunger that the baby may show before they start crying. Okay, so we just did a large group activity. So here is an example of one of our small group activities. We all know that parent and child provider communication is extremely important in the care of these babies. So for that reason, every lesson actually contains 1 or 2 slides on communicating with parents and families. Lesson 2, which I'm covering now, contains this particular small group activity to allow participants to discuss amongst themselves how they would handle this particular situation. So I'll go ahead and read the scenario on the slide here. So baby Talia is 2 months old and is new to your family child care site. She drinks breast milk. You want to get to know baby Talia and what her usual eating habits are throughout the day. You want to know how baby Talia lets you know when she is hungry and how much breast milk she usually drinks in a day. So what can you do? So at this point in the training session, you've read the scenario out loud, and when you're finished, you can go ahead and ask participants to turn to somebody next to them or in groups of 3 and talk about what they might do in that particular situation. So in the training, after you've given folks a few minutes to have that conversation with others to share, definitely come back together to hear what participants came up with. So you can always point them to the parent handouts that are available as communication tools in their Feeding Infants in the CACFP guide. And for this scenario particularly, we're calling out one of the handouts shown on the slide here, which is tell us about your breastfed baby. And this would really allow baby Talia's parents to share information on the handout, like how they know when baby Talia is hungry and how much breast milk she usually drinks during each feeding. This handout also lets baby Talia know that, baby Talia's mom know that there is a space she can breastfeed her baby at your child care site, among other things. So this is just one of the examples of the scenarios and the parent handouts available to participants. Okay, so pull out that piece of paper if you wrote your answers down, or continue to shout at me through your computer, or use the chat box feature, because we have the formal polling question up on your screen now, or in the bottom right-hand corner, you might see the polling question. So the post-test here is question number 1, true or false? Crying is one of the first signs that a baby is hungry. So I'll give you a few seconds. Go ahead and answer that polling question. All right, they're still coming in. Okay, great. So most of you answered true. So crying is actually is the last sign of hunger. So we just want to make sure that we're paying attention to some of those other hunger signs before a baby gets hungry. All right, so all of this next one here is all of these pictures show a baby giving a sign that he or she is hungry, except choose one. So again, you have the poll up. So choice A is make sucking noises, B, opens mouth for bottle, C, sucks slowly or stops sucking, and D, rooting. So all of these signs mean the baby is hungry, except which one? All right, you all are doing better on this one. So the answer is C, suck slowly or stop sucking. Great job. All right, last post-test question. So all of these pictures show a baby giving a sign that he or she is full, except choose one. Again, you're gonna have that polling question pop up. So the answer choices are A, pushing food away, B, turns head away, C, rooting, or D, seals lips together. So go ahead and answer your question, choose your answer and put it in the poll now. Great, overwhelmingly response to rooting. Great, so rooting is a sign of hunger, not fullness. All right, so we're gonna move on to the training assessments that are available. There are multiple tools to help you create and incorporate pre-test and post-test within your training if you choose to do so. You can have participants verbally walk through the pre-test and post-test found in the presentations and trainer notes, like we just did. Or you can use the hard copies of each lesson pre-test and post-test. You can even create your own assessment using the question bank Word document we have available. Or if you plan to conduct all 10 lessons, we do have a 10-question final assessment. And all of these can be found with the trainer's kit on our Team Nutrition website. Okay, now for the really fun part. As I mentioned earlier in the webinar, we do have 2 digital interactive games that can be played with the large group. It can also actually be played as a follow-up activity after your training for participants to check their knowledge days or even weeks after the training. So this first one is titled Baby Food Lineup, where you are presented with 4 meals and snacks. You're offered 6 food and beverage choices, and you must click on 3 choices to create a creditable meal or snack. This game shows up as a wrap-up to Lesson 1. The introduction screen to this game, after you click the Start button shown here on the slide, does include information on how to play the game, as well as the assumptions you as the player can make about the baby. Like the baby does not have any known food allergies or intolerances, and the baby is developmentally ready for solid foods. So here's an example of one of the meal scenarios. This one says, what can you offer baby Michael as part of a reimbursable breakfast in the CACFP? Select 3 foods. So you can see here that your options are breast milk, orange juice, strawberries, crackers, iron-fortified infant cereal, and O's cereal, and the serving sizes for each one. You can click 3 options. So here I click strawberries, iron-fortified infant cereal, and O's cereal. It shows that I got 2 of them correct with a check mark and 1 X, so I did not get that one correct. And the feedback explains why certain items are correct or incorrect. So in this case, O's cereal is a ready-to-eat cereal, and we know that ready-to-eat cereals and crackers can only be served at snack. So since this is a breakfast meal scenario, we cannot serve ready-to-eat cereal. Therefore, I should have selected the breast milk in addition to the strawberries and iron-fortified infant cereal to make this a reimbursable breakfast meal. And you'll see at the top right corner there that it does have a score that it keeps track of throughout the game. So our second game we have is the Feeding Babies game show. This game appears at the end of lesson 10. This is a game in which participants answer questions to review information presented in all 10 of the lessons. So you can find it in lesson 10. There are 15 questions organized into 5 categories on a game board. And then 2 of the questions are designated as a baby bonus and are worth double the points. So it's really exciting when you hit that one. The game can be played individually, as I mentioned before, or as a group. And if it's played as a group, this game does work best in 2 teams. So like I said, the Feeding Babies game show digital interactive game includes questions of content that is covered in all 10 lessons. However, you can still play the game even if you do not present all 10 lessons. If you've chosen a shorter training session from our suggested training list in the trainer's guide, questions posed in the game may have not been covered during the training with that shorter training session. However, playing the game in that shorter training can really be an opportunity for participants to become familiar with the Feeding Infants and the Child and Adult Care Food Program Guide, that participant handbook they have, by encouraging them to find the answers to the questions within the guide. So there are 5 categories and different point values groups can choose from to answer. The categories are feeding infants, breast milk formula, solid foods, creditable foods, and talking with parents. So here's an example of feeding infants for 300 if you were to click on that one. So where it shows the picture, and then it asks the team if this baby is showing signs of being hungry or full. They would then ask you as the trainer to select the answer they think is correct. Feedback is then given on if the answer is correct or incorrect and why that is. It also points the players to the chapter in the Feeding Infants in the CACFP guide to find more information on this topic if they would like to look it up later or there within the training. This could also be a good teaching point. So if a team gets it wrong, you could just pause the game and have participants flip to that relevant section in the Feeding Infants in the CACFP guide to find the correct answer. And then one of the cutest parts about this game is the inclusion of the babies on the bottom that pop up after you select your answer. So that baby that shows up in the bottom left of the screen here pops up. So if the team gets it correct, then the baby appears and is laughing. If the team gets it incorrect, then the baby appears and is crying. All right, so if you're excited to get started on preparing for your next training on the CACFP infant meal pattern and plan to use our CACFP Trainers Tools Feeding Infants Kit, please remember that each participant should receive the Feeding Infants in the CACFP guide as their participant handbook for the training. And then also, if you're conducting lesson 3 on creating a breastfeeding-friendly environment in a childcare site, then you may want to also have our Breastfed Babies Welcome Here kit available for each participant or site as well. The kit includes a mother's guide, poster, and a removable sticker. Team nutrition materials are free to anyone to view and download from our Team Nutrition website at www.teamnutrition.usda.gov. Print materials are free to order for all participating in a child nutrition program, such as the CACFP. And to order our free materials, please click on the Order Team Nutrition Resources button on Team Nutrition's homepage. So earlier this year, as Francine mentioned, we had 7 states pilot this training and provided invaluable feedback that has been incorporated and really shaped the final product of this kit. A big thank you to these 7 state agencies that piloted the materials, and that includes the Department of Education in Arizona, in Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, of course, Washington, D.C., Rhode Island, and then North Dakota Department of Public Instruction. In total, earlier this year, they trained almost 300 operators during that time. All right, so I'm now going to turn it over to Ms. Erica Nelson, the CACFP specialist with the Office of the State Superintendent of Education in Washington, D.C., who, with her team, helped pilot the training. Erica is going to be discussing her experience with the kit and then tips for you all for a successful launch. So, Erica?
Thank you so much, Katie. That was a wonderful orientation to the Feeding Infants Guide and the toolkit materials, so thank you all. Again, my name is Erica Nelson. I'm a program specialist here at the Office of the State Superintendent of Education in Washington, D.C. So D.C. is one of the states that received the CACFP Meal Service Training Grant that Francine mentioned earlier. And as a grantee, we were offered the opportunity to pilot the CACFP Trainers Tools Feeding Infants Kit earlier this year. Our CACFP grant is focused on providing tailored one-on-one and small group technical assistance around the meal patterns. Piloting the Feeding Infants Toolkit really helped us kickstart some brainstorming and more in-depth thinking on how we provide technical assistance to our operators. I have a question for our audience because I see that you guys enjoy the polling. If you were conducting a training on feeding infants, who would your audience be? Please select one of the choices: state agency staff, CACFP sponsoring organization staff, infant teachers or home providers, nutritionists or food program coordinators. Please take a few seconds to make your selection. Okay, so it looks like most of our participants today would be using these materials to train infant teachers and home providers directly, so program operators. Thank you. So I'd like to share with you guys some of the training considerations that we had when piloting these materials. While the USDA provided all of the training materials, there's still a lot of many aspects that are allowed for modifications as needed. So first, we considered the duration of the session. Our agency does not routinely facilitate trainings that exceed 4 hours, so we knew that we needed to be strategic with how we offered the training to our participating organizations. We also recognized how valuable each lesson was as a standalone session. We ultimately chose to combine 2 of the 2-hour suggested trainings found in the trainer's guide that included the lessons we determined would be most beneficial. So for the pilot, we ended up offering 9 lessons in a 4-hour session. As Katie mentioned, though, the published toolkit allows you to choose from 1, 2, 3, or 4-hour sessions. Or if you choose, you can conduct all of the lessons in a 5-hour block. We also considered our audience. Who did we want to pilot these materials with? We considered segregating our participants by role or duty. We rarely get to meet with and train teachers and kitchen staff directly throughout the year, so we knew we wanted to include them. The benefit of having an infant teachers only session would be to support the staff that feed the children and speak with parents and guardians daily. The benefit of having a program administrators only session would be to ensure that staff with oversight duties and administrative duties were also well trained on meal pattern requirements. The benefit of having kitchen staff only session would be to ensure that staff who prepare meals are getting accurate information directly from the state agency. We ultimately chose to offer what we called a mixed session for participants with some or all CACFP duties. We wanted to ensure that operators with all levels of experience, knowledge, and duties were in each session. It was our goal to help identify and close gaps between the staff and dismantle silos in their work around feeding infants and communicating with families. We learned that many kitchen staff were unaware of the infant meal pattern standards and how their work intersects with infant meals, such as making modifications to the solid foods for the older infants. It was also beneficial for program administrators and infant teachers to have a shared understanding of the requirements for infant records, like state agency templates. We observed that staff from one of our larger organizations, they were discussing, there were some teachers, obviously, and administrators, and they were discussing how they communicate with parents on a daily basis during drop-off and pickup, and ultimately identified areas of disconnect from what the front office staff, who usually handle the admissions, communicate to families at the time of enrollment versus what teachers communicate to families on a daily basis. In preparing for our training, we considered the value of the lessons individually and in combination. We also thought about our participants' learning styles. So we tried to choose lessons that included appropriate modifications for all learners, the visual, the auditory, and the experiential learner. The published toolkit includes videos for your visual and experiential learners who want to observe realistic interactions. You have access to digital interactive games and handouts for your tactile learners who enjoy manipulating materials. And then, of course, you have the standard presentations for all learners. Let's talk about the GLOWs. The GLOWs were the successes and highlights from our 2 pilot sessions. First, we'll talk about the trainer's feedback. So that's myself and my team. It was helpful for us to have the trainer's guide, which outlined exactly how FNS intends for the training to be organized and facilitated. It included the session breakdowns, the timelines for presentations, and all of your organizational notes. Our specialists found it helpful to have those presentation notes included in the presentation slides. They kind of function as a script. So it minimizes the time that your staff will have to spend developing the presentation. It's simply reading it, understanding, digesting, and getting ready to disseminate to your participants. And then the trainer's guide includes tons of other notes for your presenters. Our team started each lesson with the pre-assessment questions. So as Katie was saying, to reduce paper, we just asked our audience the questions aloud and allowed them to shout them out or yell them at us. So we can kind of get a feel for where folks were starting before we went into the material. At the end of each lesson, we revisited those questions as a post-assessment in the same verbal format. At the end of the entire training, however, we did disseminate the entire post-assessment, which included the questions from all of the lessons we covered. It was a great way for us to see and hear what information participants were arriving with, what they retained immediately after the lesson, and then what they could recall later in the day. Modifications. So lesson 3 of the toolkit focuses on breastfeeding support in the child care setting. It gave us an opportunity to share state-specific WIC information and disseminate copies of the DC Breastfeeding Resource Guide. And then, of course, our favorite modification, because who doesn't like prizes, we were able to raffle off an infant food mill and a bottle warming system. And participants, of course, enjoyed the brief break and appreciated the new equipment. The shiniest of our GLOWs has ultimately been the USDA state agency collaboration. It's been awesome having the opportunity to pilot these materials. We appreciate the responsible and responsive approach of piloting them prior to the launch. By selecting state agencies with a strong reputation for training to conduct a soft launch, Katie and her team were able to get valuable feedback on every element of the toolkit, from the content to the printed materials and the games. And of course, since DC is just a stone's throw away from USDA offices, we actually had the pleasure of hosting Katie and her colleague Mimi at one of our sessions. They were so kind, they jumped right in and answered participant questions when necessary. The whole team has been very supportive throughout. We were asked to provide feedback on every step of the process, from the logistics and preparation to execution and recommendations for improvements. We were impressed to see that many of our recommendations were reflected in the published toolkit, so they were truly incorporated. From consolidating some of the lessons and topics to including important alerts for the trainers, we could tell that our feedback was not taken in vain. This positive synergy is not unique to DC. So during last week's USDA state agency meeting, I heard from other states that piloted the infant materials, and they had similar experiences. They shared that the training materials were thoughtful and that their operators were thrilled to have been selected to participate in the pilot as well. So this is a lovely photo of one of my colleagues, Ms. Krishna Hill. She's one of our trainers. And that's a direct quote from one of our participants. All topics shared were important. Next, I want to talk about the glows from the participants, their feedback. Our participants gave very rich feedback on their evaluation forms. One of the prominent themes was how useful the information was for the administrators and for office staff. Again, these are folks who tend to have oversight duties for administrative functions and documents and paperwork and record keeping, but sometimes they don't have that firsthand knowledge of meal service operations and meal pattern requirements. Our participants reported that the training materials included specific and concise examples about feeding infants in a child care setting. So that was really important. We wanted to make sure that these materials reflected what's happening on the ground every day so that folks can really implement the information. The parent communications and the associated handouts were very helpful. So infant teachers explained how they discuss infant feeding with parents and guardians, but sometimes they aren't routinely recording those details. The handouts can be implemented in a way that they can record those updates and document changes in feeding habits. Participants also reported loving the top-ranked lessons. Lesson number 1, we received very positive feedback on the meal pattern requirements, but then also on the creditable infant food lessons. So our state agency provided a great deal of technical assistance when the revised meal pattern was launched, or excuse me, prior to the launch in 2017. However, during our on-site administrative reviews in 2018, we found that folks were still struggling with implementing the meal pattern requirements for infants. These sessions helped reintroduce those requirements, but then it also seemed to demystify the creditable foods that we were talking about. And as Katie mentioned, who doesn't love a game? So the Feeding Babies game show was excellent. We conducted an in-person training in spring of 2017 for the infant meal pattern, and it included a trivia game like Jeopardy. So to play this game, it was a very similar format, and it's a great way, again, to reinforce content and engage the learning points that may be landing well. It encourages teamwork and further collaboration from participants in the room. So again, this is a group of our early learning educators, and a direct quote from a participant that the training was very interactive. Another photo of myself and my supervisor, Katrina Florick, engaging with early learning educators around meal pattern standards. And again, direct quote from a participant. Everything was helpful and informative. We were provided with information that can help us, as well as the parents, to find the appropriate meals to be given to babies. So So as we turn our attention to some of the challenges that may arise, I'd like to ask, does your state have specific licensing requirements for breast milk? Please select one of the following options. Yes, aligned with CACFP and WIC best practices. Yes, not aligned with CACFP and WIC best practices. No, or unsure. Please take a moment to make your selection. So if you've made your selection, thank you very much. It looks like most folks didn't answer or were unsure, but some folks were sure that they have state-specific licensing requirements for breast milk. Thank you for your answers. So the breast milk actually turned out to be one of our challenges. As introduced, our state agency does have a licensing unit with very clear regulations on how child care providers must handle and store breast milk. These regulations are not aligned with CACFP or WIC best practices, and so storage time and guidance differs. This was definitely an opportunity, and initially it proved to be challenging for participants who inquired which guidance they should follow. Of course, we instructed folks to remain in compliance with licensing requirements. Thanks to the CACFP trainers' tools, Feeding Infants Kit, there are several reminders for trainers to reference their state's licensing regulations. And that's not just for the breast milk, any other element of the materials. So when providing trainings on CACFP infant meal pattern, it can be challenging to explain the one parent provided component rule. In Chapter 1 and Chapter 6 of the published Feeding Infants Guide and in Lesson 10 of the Trainer's Kit, the USDA succinctly describe how to determine if a meal is reimbursable when a component from home is served. So I look forward to using the toolkit to revisit that topic during our on-site visits this fiscal year. Lastly, Lesson 1 was an overview of the meal pattern standards, and then we revisit those requirements in Lessons 9 and 10 when we discuss creditable infant foods. In the past, our participants had difficulty recalling specific requirements, like which components are required at each meal. Thanks to these lessons in the Trainer's Kit, they help providers make a solid line connection between meal pattern requirements, required components, and the creditable solid foods that meet those components. Depending on the training needs of your operators, I would highly recommend including these lessons in your training. And recommendations for successful trainings. So our participants liked the videos. They commented on how the actors were diverse by race, gender, and age. We recommend engaging participants in discussions about how the scenarios may look in real life at their facilities. You may also follow up with some role-playing exercise to help generate conversations and brainstorm strategies. Additionally, for trainers that choose to offer these sessions in 3 to 5 hour blocks, we encourage you to keep your participants engaged by taking short breaks to boost energy, offer door prizes and raffle items if possible, and then include activities where relevant. Like Katie mentioned, all of the lessons include a small group or a large group activity. So our team chose to use handouts and packaging from ready-to-eat cereal and yogurt to discuss identifying sugar limits. And those activities are explicitly included in lesson number 10 using Appendix D in the Feeding Infants Guide.
Thank you, Erica, for that great presentation. Thank you, Katie, as well. It was really helpful to hear about a state's experience in piloting the new materials. So that concludes the informational portion for our webinar today. We will take questions in a few minutes, so please go ahead and start typing them now into your chat box on your screen. You might have to hover over the bottom of the slides and see a little kind of comment chat bubble, and you can click on that and type in your questions. After the Q&A, a post-webinar survey will pop up on your screen. We really want to hear your feedback, what you enjoyed about today's presentation, and any other feedback you'd like to share. Those of you attending for the entire hour today will receive a certificate via email by the end of the day on December 31st. Please wait until after the new year and check your spam or junk mailboxes before inquiring about your certificate. If you're viewing the webinar with multiple people, you can print out a certificate for each person. More practice questions are available at the National CACFP Sponsors Association website at www.cacfp.org/resources/trainers circle. For those of you who want to submit or track continuing education credits with the National CACFP Sponsors Association, you can do that at that link as well. Continuing Professional Education Units, CPEUs, have also been approved from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Commission on Dietetic Registration, and certificates are available upon request through the Team Nutrition inbox. The email address is teamnutrition@usda.gov. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the Team Nutrition website. If you are watching this as a recorded webinar and want to receive a certificate, you can go to the National CACFP Sponsors Association website to complete the post-webinar practice questions and then receive a certificate. The certificates may be a few days before they are emailed to you. Finally, feel free to visit our website, subscribe to our monthly e-newsletter, connect with us via email at teamnutrition@usda.gov, and follow us on Twitter. And as a reminder, sponsoring organizations or independent centers can sign up to become a Team Nutrition CACFP organization. Now we are going to take questions from the chat box. So it looks like the first one that we have here is for Katie. The question is, Katie, can you remind us when this trainer's kit will be available?
Absolutely, because I'm so excited. It's already out there. So the English version is already available online on our Team Nutrition website. The URL for that is www.teamnutrition.usda.gov. And the Spanish version will be available in January 2020. We're also going to have print copies of both the English and the Spanish version available at a later date. But the trainer's guide will be printed, and all of those electronic files, so the PowerPoint presentations, the videos, the digital interactive games, those are going to be housed on a USB drive that will be included with the printed trainer's guide.
Sounds great. So folks can go on our website right now and access the materials.
Absolutely.
Okay, the next question we have is for Erica. And the question is, Erica, I believe you touched on this, but can you repeat again which lessons your participants liked the most?
So the top-ranked lessons were Lesson 1 and then Lessons 9 and 10 around the creditable foods. When you put them all together in Chapter 7 of the Feeding Infants Guide, it really helps folks make the solid line, the connection between meal pattern requirements and then the solid food components that meet those requirements.
Thank you, Erica. The next question we have is for Katie. Is this class intended for providers or sponsors?
Okay, great question. So this is for both, for all of the above. So it can be for states to train their sponsoring organizations and independent child care centers. It can also be for sponsoring organizations to use this kit to train their family daycare homes and center staff. It can also be used at the center or family daycare home level to train classroom teachers on the CACFP infant meal pattern. So it's really geared to any trainer who is providing these trainings for a CACFP operator that has infants enrolled in their care.
Thank you. The next question we have is also for Katie. Can individual child care providers order the guide?
Okay, another good question. So if that child care provider participates in the CACFP, then yes, they can order the guide through our Team Nutrition website. And those are free to those that participate in our child nutrition programs.
Thank you. And another question that we have that just came in, the question reads, I work in a daycare. What can I do if the baby is, if there's infant feeding, if the baby is feeding infants that are not ready to eat. I'm sorry, that probably should be if the provider is feeding infants that are not ready to eat.
Okay, so if, I'm not exactly sure what this one is asking, but if I was to guess, so if it's the provider or the parent, so it's really to have that conversation, and I'll take the side of the parent here. If the provider doesn't agree with what the parent wants to offer that baby while they're in your care, it's really, first of all, it's really the parent's decision, but it's also a discussion that can be had with the parents. And we're really hoping that those communication tools that are found in the Feeding Infants and the CACFP guide really help to facilitate that communication and help you really gather information from the parents on the reasons why and what types of foods that they're offering their baby at home that they also want you to offer in childcare. And again, those communication tools are called out in the trainer's kit as well.
Thank you, Katie. There's another question that came in that I am going to answer. Can you repeat how to get the certification document? So after the webinar, we'd love for you to complete the post-webinar survey that is going to pop up. And certificates will be emailed to attendees who have been participating in the webinar for this full hour. So those will come from Team Nutrition USDA email address to your inbox, and we'll send it to the email address that you registered for the webinar with. If you are further interested in receiving continuing professional education units through the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics Commission on Dietetic Registration, you can respond to that email and make that request to Team Nutrition, and we can then send you a certificate. And you can also receive certificates from the National CACFP Sponsors Association by completing the post-webinar questions that are housed on their website as well. So there are several options. Okay, there's another question that has come in for Katie. Where can we find the breastfeeding worksheet handout for parents?
Okay, so, and I just touched on this a little bit, but for communication, or for parents, those communication tools, so including this breastfeeding worksheet or handout that we're referring to in this question, that can be found in the Feeding Infants in the CACFP guide, along with many other communication tools for childcare providers to not only use with parents, but also great reminders for childcare providers as well. So there's 6 parent handouts in the Feeding Infants guide and 4 handouts specifically for childcare providers. In addition, I did mention our Breastfed Babies Welcome Here toolkit, which is another great resource for childcare operators to support breastfeeding mothers. And that includes, like I mentioned, a mother's guide, a poster that they can hang up at their childcare site, as well as a removable sticker. So that is available already now in English and Spanish on our Team Nutrition website. And those can be ordered, downloaded for free by anybody, or also ordered by those that participate in a child nutrition program.
Thank you. And we had another question that came in asking if you had to be a Team Nutrition CACFP organization to receive the kit. And while we would love for you to sign up to become a Team Nutrition CACFP organization if you're a sponsor or an independent child care center, you do not have to be enrolled to go onto our website and download any of the training materials that were discussed today, whether it's the Breastfed Babies Welcome Here Kit, the CACFP Feeding Infants Guide, or the Trainer's Tool. So that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you guys so much for joining the webinar. We hope you've got a lot of great information out, and enjoy the rest of your day.